live across the planet and retransmitted on all major streaming platforms. Tonight's program is brought to you in part by Wellington Brewery's Hellas Lager, Deadly Grounds Coffee, Twisted Teas, and of course Canada's #1 genre film company, Black Fawn Distribution. You wanted the best? Well, they didn't make it, so here's what you get.
It's really not that bad.
You are going to hell.
Here's your host, Benner from Black Fawn Distro.
Okay, thanks everyone for tuning back in to another edition of Takeover Tuesday. I'm your host, Benner from Black Fawn Distro, and I am super stoked to do this episode tonight. We've obviously this is a special episode. It's a super deluxe Hotstove From Hell edition of Black Fawn Distro's Takeover Tuesday, which means, you know, we sat around, we had some thoughts about what we could do that was a bit new, a bit fresh, a bit different. And we figured, hey, why not have a bunch of people that we really love and respect back on the program, maybe some new faces, and we'll talk about something that we're all really passionate about, just to kind of mix things up. And so we decided, why not do the iconic Scream franchise? The new movie Scream, or Scream 5, or Scream 2022, whatever you want to call it. We're going to get into that in a second, but is available everywhere on HD video, VOD. I think it's on 4K and Blu-ray as well. Just hit theaters in January, but we're going to go into that film as well as all the other installments, the previous 4 entries into Wes Craven's awesome franchise. So, of course, right off the top, if you haven't seen the new movie, or if you haven't seen any of the Scream movies and want to, just a big spoiler alert. So if you don't want anything ruined, I'd suggest maybe tuning out now. But most people have seen them, and if you have, stick around, and we're going to dive into it with a whole bunch of people that are near and dear to my heart, as well as the Black Fawn Distribution heart, or the collective heart, or whatever you want to call it. So now this evening's episode is broadcasting live exclusively to YouTube and Twitch. And but of course, we will rebroadcast this episode on all the major streaming platforms as well, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Of course, please remember to like, follow, share, and subscribe wherever you can, and as we'd appreciate it for sure. And it helps spread the word about the show. And of course, if you feel like going like the extra mile, jump onto Apple Podcasts, review the show, Black Fawn Distro's Takeover Tuesday. We'd appreciate the support. It helps get the show out there to horror fans right around the world. So for everything, and someone's just piped in. We are taking comments and questions. If you want to hit us down below in YouTube, we will try and get to them, or on Twitch, we will try and get to them throughout the broadcast. Someone actually just said it's also known as 5 cream, which is kind of weird when you say it out loud, but it's with instead of the S, you put the number 5 for the new film. So thanks for that. We'll get to that person later on, and we'll give them a special shout out because I know who they are. But listen, quick shout out to our sponsors as well: Wellington Brewery's Hellas Lager, Deadly Grounds Coffee, and Twisted Teas. And of course, due to time constraints, because we really want to attribute a lot of the programming time on this episode to our panel, we're going to skip our usual news update and our fried chicken sandwich report. I know. That's very, very disappointing, very sad news. But don't worry, have no fear. We'll be back to our regular format on the next episode of Takeover Tuesday, and we'll get you those fried chicken sandwich reports that I know everyone is craving. So listen, we've got a great panel of guests tonight, including Rue Morgue Magazine contributor Jessica Buck, Canadian genre acting legend Ry Barrett, and the infamous Spinsters of Horror, Jess Nicole and Kelly Gredner. Before I invite this renegade group sort of into my panel to take over this, who knows what's going to happen? I'm sure it's going to be absolutely insane. But I also don't want to oversell it. I love these people. I love their horror minds, their movie minds, and I'm excited to see kind of what kind of debate we're going to have tonight. So Scream 1, Scream 2, Scream 3, Scream 4, and 5 Cream. I guess that's what we're going to cover tonight. And of course, again, spoilers alert if you haven't seen any of the films, or especially the new film. Of course, just a heads up. Okay. Now, I figured before we jump in, let's take a look at the classic original Scream trailer, the movie that kicked off everything back in 1996. I hadn't seen this for a long time, and it was super cool to kind of to check out. Took me way back when I was a teenager. And of course, I've dated myself. But let's take a quick look. And when we come back after the break, we're going to chop it up with this panel of guests that I can't wait to introduce. So see you after the break, and we'll be back in 2 seconds.
Hello?
Hello?
Who is this?
Tell me your name, I'll tell you mine.
I don't think so.
What's that noise?
Popcorn.
You making popcorn?
Well, I'm getting ready to watch a video.
Really? What?
Oh, just some scary movie.
You like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
You never told me your name.
Why do you want to know my name?
I want to know who I'm looking at.
Someone is playing a deadly game.
It all began with a scream over 911.
Someone who's seen one too many scary movies. Now he's taken his love of fear
Hello?
Hello, Sydney.
one step too far.
Do you like scary movies?
What's the point? They're all the same. Some stupid killer stalking some big-breasted girl who can't act, who's always running up the stairs when she should be going out the front door. It's insulting.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a scary movie. Number 1, you can never have sex. Never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back. Get another beer, you want one? Yeah, sure. I'll be right back.
He didn't make the rules.
Police are always on track if they watch prom night at same time.
He just kills by them. Don't answer the phone. Don't open the door. Don't try to hide.
Everybody's a suspect!
You're not scared, are you?
Squeak.
Okay, and we are back with our panel of guests. I'm going to bring everyone into the room right now. Hello, everybody. How was that, watching that trailer for the first time, maybe in a long time?
It was nice.
I got chills. It brought me back. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, listen, I'm just going to give everyone a quick heads up as to who we have on the panel this evening. Of course, this gentleman needs little to no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. He's an accomplished Canadian actor who's been in almost everything. His credits include The Drownsman, The Heretics, Life Changer, Never Lost, just to name a few. Currently, you can catch him in the new horror flick, The Chamber of Terror, which is touring the festival circuit, as well as in If a Tree Falls and Save Yourself, both of which are streaming free right now on Tubi. If it's genre and it's Canadian, chances are this dude's in it. I'm of course talking to Mr. Ry Barrett. Ry, how are you, man?
Cheers, guys. Thanks for having me, man.
No problem. And listen, I wouldn't be doing our audience any favors if I wasn't fully transparent. But thanks for just joining us. And I can't say, you know what? He wasn't late. I can tell you this right now. He wasn't late. He got there with seconds to burn. But thanks again for joining us tonight. Looking forward to your thoughts on this for sure. My next guests are come as a package. I tried separating them, but to no avail. This was a non-starter, non-negotiable. I'm of course talking about the Spinsters of Horror, Jess Nicole Kelly Gredner. They are both writers and contributors to various publications, as well as the co-hosts of the I Spit on Your podcast. You can catch that online actually at spinstersofhorror.com or wherever you grab your favorite podcasts on all the platforms. Jess and Kelly, welcome back to the program. I know you've been here before. Happy you're here. How are you?
Hello. So happy to be back to talk about pretty much my favorite franchise of all time. So thank you. Representing here.
Oh, definitely. You're representing the cult of Matthew Lillard.
Yep.
Yes.
I gotta say, fantastic choice of shirts tonight. Appreciate you guys going the extra mile. That's great. I've got the Scream. I don't know if anyone can see it, but I can. I've got the Scream Blu-ray set just behind you.
Ah,
on the Now
nice.
Playing
Yeah.
stand.
I've got it.
And,
I got it too.
Now Playing. I just want to give a quick shout out to this guy I know, Vince. Him and his wife, I think, make these little stands. They're super awesome. I was able to pick one up, and it looks great on the podcast now. So that's awesome. So thanks a lot, Vince, if you're listening. Thank you. And of course, last but not least, she is a contributor to the fantastic Rue Morgue Magazine and fan of all things horror. I rang the Who Wants to Come on the program and talk about Scream bell, and she was the first to answer, and now she's here. That's how it works, folks. That's how it works. First time guest on the program and a diehard Scream fan. Please, everyone, welcome the awesome Jessica Buck. Jessica, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. Thank you.
Hey,
And true to my life, I'm one of many Jessicas in the room. I feel like
The same for Ryan's too. Generally.
Yeah, we had to jump off. We had to figure out how we were going to separate the two Jessicas. So I got told what I could call you and what I could not call you, and so we've gone with Jess and Jessica. You can figure out which name is missing from that if you're curious, but don't ask. They won't tell you. So great. Well, thanks everyone for doing this. Obviously really appreciate it. And, this is a great film series, obviously, that we've all been a fan of for decades now. And of course, with the new film coming out in this past January and on VOD this month, actually, I'm talking about the Scream franchise. Wondering if we could go around the horn here a little bit and talk about, what this franchise maybe means to you, or like, how did you get into the Scream franchise? 1996, first one drops. Of course, we just saw that first trailer, which is such an awesome trailer. It, like, even if you had never seen that movie before, even if that trailer came out today, you'd just be like, I actually really want to see that as a horror fan. So let's start with, I don't know, who wants to go first? Kelly, you want to kick things off?
Absolutely. So in 1996, I watched Scream in the theaters for the very first time. And the rest, they say, is history. But these movies have been in my life since 1996. I watched almost all of them in theater. And so I was sadly unable to watch Scream 2022 in theater just due to whatever, life scheduling and whatnot. But it came out when I was 14 years old. And that was obviously a very important time, formative time in my formative years of a horror fan. Prior to Scream, I watched predominantly 80s horror during my epic sleepovers that I would continuously throw for my friends and I. And I mean, well, I think The Craft was also 1996. So it was like around this time where we got The Craft, we've got Scream, and it started the like teen horror cycle that I'm absolutely obsessed with. And that's kind of the stuff that I really grew up with. So they're all very important to me. But this one, since this and The Craft really started it off, it just really does hold a special place in my horror loving heart.
Awesome. Okay. I mean, we might as well go with Jess, the other half of the I Spit on Your podcast. Jess, what can you tell us? How did you get into Scream originally?
Okay, well, it's a kind of a two-part story. First part is I saw the first Scream movie at a sleepover, and it scared the bejesus out of me. Like, the point where, like, I'm hiding under the blanket, peeking through, being like, this is terrifying. And so it was the movie that scared me away from horror for a bit, because I had an overactive imagination. But then I revisited later in my elder years, in my later years, rediscovering my horror fandom, and I just fell in love with the series, just because it brings so much nostalgia back to that time period of when we were growing up. But I just love all the messaging, I love all the characters, and I just really love how it's such a great and important franchise to the horror genre itself.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so throwing it over to the other Jess, now known as Jessica. Jessica, you're a diehard Scream fan. I posted this and said, "Hey, anybody out there want to come on like a podcast and just talk about Scream?" And you were like, "Yes, like please." Not that you were like super that excited, but I just felt like, even your responses were like, "Wow, you love these movies." How did you get into the franchise?
Similar story to some others. It was a girls' sleepover, and in 1996, I didn't see it in theater. So if it was 1997, I was like 12, just turning 13. So also a very like formative time. And it wasn't like the very first horror movie I'd ever seen, but I think it was the one that really started me on this like, wow, like I'm into this. I was like obsessed with Sydney, and she's such a badass like final girl. Like she succeeds because she's a badass, basically. I still want to name my daughter Sydney if I have one. That's been going since I was like 12 or 13. So for me, that's how I got into it, is like watching scary movies with the girls in my best friend's basement and scaring each other when we come out of the bathroom and it's dark and that kind of stuff. So that's how it started for me. I only think I saw the third one and the fifth one in theaters. I think everything else has been kind of the same, like sleepover types.
Okay. Awesome. And of course, throwing it over to Barrett. We try and get people to put their actual professional handles on our podcast, but Barrett showed up one with 20 seconds left before he went to air, but also he signs in with red right hand. So I had to let it slide. Super awesome. Barrett, you're a massive horror fan. You've been for years. Me and you have chopped it up about movies for, basically every time we see each other. But how'd you get into Scream? Like, what's your first memories of diving into the franchise?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's similar kind of story too. I saw it in theater simply because I was 15 at the time. My older brother snuck me in. He snuck me into a lot of movies. This was one that I really wanted to see because I think I would have been in grade 9 or 10 at the time when it came out. And I was sitting on a bus it was either, I don't know where we were going, a school bus. And of course, the kids at the back of the bus were talking about they had just seen it in theater. And I didn't even know about it at this point. I hadn't even seen a trailer or anything. And he was describing the opening scene. I'm just like, this sounds like something I've seen before. I'm like, it sounds like a bunch of wild openings from so many like babysitter horror kind of stuff and everything. But the addition of talking about scary movies, the fact that this was made for us, everyone who loved scary movies, and it was directed solely for this crowd of people who love and know scary movies, that it was something I just had to see. And he started talking about it, and I actually got up and went to the front of the bus because I didn't want to hear anything else after he got past the opening. And then we went and snuck in and saw it that weekend. And yeah, it's been one of my favorite series ever since. I feel like it's the same for everybody because it literally talks to horror fans, and that's why we love it, right?
Yeah. And so I mean, for myself, like I didn't see it in the theater. Now, because you guys all told those stories, I was thinking about sneaking this in and saying, like, I was like 3 years old when this came out, so I wouldn't date myself and I would seem like a younger gentleman. But I won't. I'll be honest. So I was probably about 15 at the time, and it came out on video. So we went to the video store and we tried to rent it, but it was rated restricted, right? And there was this old lady that worked at the store, and she wouldn't rent it to us. And we sent in my buddy's little brother, who was looked younger than us, and they wouldn't rent it because he was like, we don't want to do it. I was like, well, we don't want to do it because we'll get into trouble, because it was such a small town that the lady would know my buddy's mom, so she would know that he was trying to rent a restricted movie. Anyway, whatever. And we were so obviously we'll get into Nev Campbell's career a little bit later on, but we were all like, it was like three 14, 15-year-old dudes, and we were just like, we all had a crush on Nev Campbell because of Party of Five, and we were just like, a horror movie, this is great. Awesome. And we watched that trailer, like we had seen the trailer on TV or at another movie or whatever. And we were like, oh man, this looks like whatever. Anyway, it took us all afternoon. It took us 4 hours to rent this movie, going to different video stores and whatever. And we watched it, and we watched it as a group. And it was just it was so much fun for us because even that age, we could tell the rules of Scream, right? Never have sex and don't do drugs or drink because, you'll be the first to go. And it was a really fun experience to watch it with some people. And it kind of made me fall in love with the genre in a fun way, right? I mean, horror is there to scare you for sure, but also as well is to entertain you. And also just a really cool whodunit, Always sitting around like three teenage boys sitting around being like, I think it's that guy. No, I think it's that guy. Really, really cool. And also a great ending, which kind of like, we were like, oh, wow. Like, so it's some definite payoff for sure. And we'll talk about some of the jokes later on because it is so meta and so, self-aware that it makes it even the sequels are enjoyable on that level for sure. So now I just wanted to so let's talk about ranking these, because sometimes a point of contention for sure, but wondering if we could flip around the room and just talk about how would you rank the 5 films. Now, again, just throwing this out there for anyone who didn't tune into the start of the broadcast, spoilers. We're going to be talking about spoilers for the movies, especially the 5th one. So if you haven't seen it, just a heads up, you can still listen to it if you don't care, or, tune out, but we appreciate the audience tonight. So, so stick around and ruin Scream 5 for yourself. But yeah, let's jump around. Let's see. I don't know, Jessica, you're Jessica Buck. Let's throw it at Jessica. You were like, you said you were like the Scream expert. How would you rank these films?
Oh, it's so hard. I feel like I pretty much have to rank them in order. Like, nothing is going to ever top the original. And if it did, that'd be crazy. For some reason, like, I remember 3 coming out, and I've always liked 3. It's only recently that I found out that a lot of people hated 3. So
they do.
Yeah, I've never really got, like, I've always appreciated it. I'm sure we might get into it a bit later, but like when the whole Me Too and like Weinstein thing came out, the first thought I had was like, they told us about this in Scream 3. I was like telling people that, they're like, yeah, they did. I was like, that's the first thought in my head. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. And I find Scream 2, when I rewatched it, I'm like, this is a fantastic movie as well. It doesn't have as many memorable moments as I find Scream 3 does, at least for me. So in some cases, maybe I would go like 1, 3, 2, 4, 5. 5 only because I've seen it once and it just came out, and I don't have enough to go on yet to really rank it above anything else.
So what's your official ranking then?
Maybe I will go 1, 3, 2, 4, 5, just to mix it up, because I feel like everybody else might go in order.
Okay.
Great. Awesome. I love seeing Scream 3 get some love. It's definitely lower on my ranking list, but I love when there's like the underdog of a franchise, or that people just champion. I think that's fantastic. So thank you, I guess.
Okay, so Kelly, so over to you then.
All right.
How would you rank these?
1, 4, 2, 3, and Scream 2022 is bottom of the barrel last. Yep.
Whoa. Shots fired.
That does not surprise me.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, Scream is like the OG. It's I'm kind of like Jessica, like, you just don't get any better with that movie in so many layers and so many regards, with how it introduced us to this kind of like meta self-referential horror. Oh, sorry. I know we're going to get into like deeper into our favorites. So anyways, yes. And I love Scream 4 very, very much. I feel like it brings back a more serious tone that we see in the original, which I like a lot. And yes, I'll leave it there, but it's 1, 4, 2, 3, and 5. Quote unquote.
Sorry, say that again.
1, 4,
okay, 2,
3,
and 5.
5.
No love for 5 cream, eh?
Nope.
Okay, Barrett, over to you, buddy. What do you got? What do you got for your ranking right now, just off the top?
Well, like right off the bat, I agree with what everyone's already saying too. And it's such a strong franchise that I feel like it is hard to choose. And depending on the timing and what you've watched last and whatever, it's going to change around, except for the first one is nothing tops the first one. And then I find it a little bit hard because Scream 3, same thing. A lot of people didn't like certain things about it, but I recently rewatched it, and it's actually hilarious. Parker Posey is amazing in it. The whole making a movie within the movie and the other versions of actors playing these characters is such a great element to it. The only thing that I think that is missing from it is Kevin Williamson's writing, because in the third act there's like a few. Anyway, I won't get into it too much, so I'm going to go with 1 and 2 first, skipping to 4, and then 3 and 5 I kind of put on the same level.
Okay, you got to pick one though. What goes fourth? What goes last?
Wow, he's getting hard here. This is tough.
Okay, well,
no
then
ties.
Three because I've seen it more times and I have more appreciation for it. 5 I need to see more often, but I did enjoy it.
Okay. And over to the other spinster, Jess. How would you rank these?
I feel like I'm going to come in here and flip the table with my rankings. So straight off the bat, my rankings are 1, 2, 4, 5, and 3.
Okay. Alrighty. Right. Okay. This is going to be interesting. We're going to get
the Jesses are going to battle it out on that Scream 3. I think that's what's going to happen.
We're gonna get into it tonight because my rankings are so Kelly, I'm with you. I like obviously the first one. I mean, we're all in agreement there. So, and I don't think that's a surprise. But I wanted to kind of figure out what everyone's worst or least favorite entry of the franchise is, but also the runner-up. So Kelly, I'm with you. I love number 4. I think number 4 is like, and we'll talk about that in a second. But like, I feel number 4 is got the closest to the original, and also as well, I kind of feel like it's the one that was kind of, I think it holds up the best. And had it been made like 2 years ago, I wouldn't have thought this, but 2011, it was, over a decade ago, and you watch it today and it's fairly on point. Like there's not a lot of stuff that's really kind of, wouldn't be applicable today. But yeah, we'll get into that in a second. So number 4, and then I'm going to go 5, 2, 3. And I know that's going to be controversial, but I think there's a couple of reasons. There's a couple of reasons for that. 3 I'm on. I hadn't seen 3 in forever, and I appreciate the film for when it was made. It is like as Jessica was saying, it's super weird with the subplot. And then like at the end, it's like produced by or executively produced by Harvey Weinstein, and it's like weird. But also I mean, pretty awesome that Lance Hendrickson's in it, and the other cameos. It's also got one of my favorite sequences in the whole franchise is in Scream 3. So I don't hate it. It's just I got to rank them somehow. And Scream 2 for me is I don't know. It just never really connected with me in the same way the first one did. And I always thought the fourth one was better than Scream 2. So it's definitely not a bad movie. And I think that's one of the hallmarks of this series is I don't think any of them are bad films. Whereas you would be like, never ever watch that film. It's like, yeah, watch it, pick it up so you have them all, but don't it's there's levels, but I don't necessarily think that there's any movie that gets a failing grade throughout the franchise. At least that's my opinion. But listen, before we get into what our favorites are and why, or our least favorites and why, and in specific examples, I just wanted to, do you think we should go over the rules of Scream? Do you think that's something that we should do for the audience? Okay, so this is in
Just
order.
a sec, I'll be right back.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do these as quick as I possibly can. Okay, so Scream 1, 1996. You can never have sex. Rule 2, you can never drink or do drugs. Number 3, you can never ever under any circumstances say I'll be right back, because you won't be back. Which is I love that line. Scream 2, 1997. 1, the body count is always bigger. 2, the death scenes are always much more elaborate. And number 3, if you want a sequel to become a franchise, never ever under any circumstance, and now this is cut off in the movie, but there is actually a trailer which has this in it, assume that the killer is dead. So don't under any circumstances assume that the killer is dead if you want your sequel to become a franchise. Scream 3, 2001. Rule number 1, you've got a killer who's going to be superhuman. Number 2, anyone including the main character can die. That means you, Sid, or including you, Sid. And number 3, the past will come back to bite you in the ass. Scream 4. Now this is a bit convoluted because there's different things, but this is what I narrowed it down to. So correct me if I'm wrong afterwards. But number 1, unexpected is the new cliche. Rule number 2, you got to have an opening sequence that blows the doors off, dialed up with some flashy music video direction. Rule number 3, the kills have to be way more extreme. And number 4, the only surefire way to survive a modern horror movie, you pretty much have to be gay. That was made in 2011, and we'll talk about that. Scream 5 Cream, Scream 2022, the most recent Scream. Again, spoilers, but rule number 1, never trust the love interest. Number 2, the killer's motive is always connected to something in the past. Number 3, the first victim always has a friend group that the killer is part of. Now, those are Dewey's rules in the new movie. There's also some additional rules from the group of new characters, which are rule number 4. The movie has to be part of an ongoing storyline, even if the storyline shouldn't have been ongoing in the first place. I love that one. And rule, which applies to like every film franchise on the planet right now. And rule number 5, new main characters supported by and related to legacy characters. And number 6, it always goes back to the original. And those are the rules of Scream. I'm going to have them going at the bottom as well, just so everyone can check them out. And if you have questions, let me know. But I don't think I'm missing anything there, but it took me a while to put them together because there's differing things. So now that we have those rules established, and no, I'm not reading them again. That's why they're at the bottom of the screen for everyone to take in. We've already established that everyone's favorite is the first one, right? I think. Let me just check my notes here. Yes, right. So, let's talk about the runner-up. Why is the runner-up great? I kind of talked about Scream 4 in a second, but who wants to go first? Let's throw it over to, I don't know, Barrett. Let's throw it over to Ry Barrett. Your number 2 was number 2, and
there's 2, yeah. It's, I mean, and it is hard because I think there's something to like about each one in a specific way. I just thought that for the first film being about scary movies and about people who love scary movies and are kind of thrown into one, it's such a brilliant sequel idea to have it open in a theater where they're watching a version of whatever happened and people get killed there, and it's written well and it's filmed really well. That like normally if that wasn't shot in a certain way you just wouldn't believe it, but it's done really well. And then they continue on with that with our favorite characters, knowing that there's a film made of them and kind of being put on this like celebrity level. And I don't know, I just love that whole concept of it. I think there are same thing, like it's not as memorable as the first one. There's some great sequences in it. The ending isn't as strong as the first one. They kind of did do a little bit of a repeat, but I don't know, all around. Otherwise, I just find it so entertaining, and that strong. The first 2/3 of the movie are so strong that anything that happens afterwards kind of doesn't really matter. I don't know. That's why I choose that one second.
Okay. Who wants to go next with the runner-up and reasons?
Well, I will echo Ryan because I had my runner-up was Scream 2 as well. So I also enjoy that as my second favorite because it's a continuation of Sydney's journey. We get to see her, starting her journey of healing after the events of the first film. And like you said, you get to revisit these characters and see what their lives are going to be like, knowing that this movie is being made about their lives. And you always wonder about that. Like, how do people feel when a movie has been made about a trauma that they experienced and how they have to interact in that day-to-day life? And I honestly really end up liking the 2 killers at the end, Mickey and Mrs. Loomis, because it just brings in that, that crazy mother stereotype, the kind of that Jason Voorhees, mother coming in to like avenge her son. And just Mickey, finding a serial killer online who is willing to do this, to make a statement about how it's the movies that make killers, right? Where, but then we were dealing with like video games and, video games are making our people violent in these movies. So I really end up liking that commentary. So I really just like how Scream 2 just kind of starts setting up the layer upon layer about each of the characters' journeys throughout the franchise.
And that's super unique too, right? We don't get that really. Maybe Halloween 2 because it's like directly is a continuation. Mm-hmm. Whether it's super strong or not, that's up for debate. But generally speaking, you don't get to see your characters like that. You don't get to see where they're at after that whole trauma, that event, that night over whatever. And so that's one of the many, many things that's so wonderful about this franchise is that you have the same characters. You get to see them, what they're doing, how they're dealing with it or not dealing with it. And you're Dewey trapped at the bottom of a bottle in Scream 2022. We actually get to see what happens with these beloved characters because we do love them. They're very fleshed out characters, and it's just so refreshing and unique to see what happens with them. They become a part of our lives, you know. You know what I mean? So I also really love Scream 2. It was really hard between Scream 4 and 2. Again, it's like picking your favorite cat. We love all our cats. They have different personalities, and they each have something to give me, but if you have to rank them, I'm going to rank my cats, and I know exactly what it is.
Everyone's got a favorite, or in this case, everyone's got a second favorite, right? So,
yes.
Okay. Well, okay. So, let's. I mean,
you forgot
Jessica.
me.
Yeah. No. Let's jump over to Jessica. Yeah. So you had Scream. Let me see. Scream 3 as your second favorite. Now, is that because you got to see it in the theater, and it was kind of like, because I attribute, I think, cooler memories to movies I saw in the theater than movies I saw at home, depending. But yeah, your rationale.
The way I see it is, I think all of us as horror fans, I find I don't get scared very often. So when a movie actually scares me, I get very excited about it. And the first one still scares me. That opening sequence, when people ask me what the scariest thing is, I'm like, that opening sequence still terrifying because it's completely real and it could happen. Like, I'm alone in my home. Obviously, someone could kill me. And that goes for Scream 3 as well. Like, there's a couple of scenes in there that aren't quite on that same level, but like, I actually get scared, like when Sydney has that like dream sequence where her mom like comes up to her window in like that forest.
Yeah, totally.
Even on the rewatch recently, I was like, oh, I knew it was coming. And same with like when she's in the house, like the mock-up of her house, and like the sheet stands up. I was like, just little things like that just scare me a lot. So I was like, for some reason, that's what gets me for Scream 3. I'm like, okay, you actually scared me a couple of times. Also, I just think it's kind of a fresh take. It's very of the time. Like, you have Jay and Silent Bob walking through it. There's just like something cool. I really like seeing like the filming of the film that is Scream. Like, I found that was really interesting to see like the behind the scenes. So just overall, I think I found it more exciting than Scream 2, even though Scream 2 is like maybe arguably better written, better acted, better put together. Scream 3 excites me more, we'll say.
To me, Scream 3 is kind of like the Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, where things get like way too campy and goofy, and it kind of like brings me out of it a little bit. I still enjoy it. I think it's still very entertaining, but it kind of it's just like almost a little bit too much for me. And I totally agree with Ryan when he's like, we're missing Kevin Williamson. Absolutely. Because he is everything for this franchise. Wes Craven, obviously, his direction is great, but it comes down to our script writing and our dialogue and how we can relate to these characters. And I just found that very lacking in Scream 3.
I think
it's, you know what, it's almost so obvious, because I was rewatching them all before seeing the newest one, and watching Scream 3. I'm like, I don't remember why people don't like this as much, because I was enjoying it so much. And then the third act comes around and people start splitting up and going into dark basements. And I was like, Kevin Williamson didn't write this. I forgot. And that's
yeah.
But other than that, I do love a lot about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think like for myself, like, I mean, I rank Scream 3 the lowest, but I did say like it's got one of my favorite sequences, which is the chase through the replica house that's on the set. Is really awesome. That's because horrifying. There's so many callbacks to you know, Sydney's original call with Ghostface, where she says, you know, they run up the stairs when they should be running out the door. It's quite frankly, it's insulting. But in that sequence, she runs up the stairs because she has nowhere to go, and also because they've made the house such a replica of her childhood home, the home she grew up in. The door on the the door on the closet. If you open it, it jams the door into the bedroom, and she uses that. And I was like, oh god, that's such a good sequence. But I don't know why. I wasn't actually sure why Kevin Williamson didn't write this one, but it does feel like you know, it's funny that like Rob Zombie once said he'd never make a third movie in his you know, Devil's Rejects trilogy, because they always fuck it up on the third one, and then he made a third movie. But anyway, hilarious. But oh, Rob Zombie, you comedian, you. Love Rob Zombie, but it's true. It's like I feel like it's just exhaustion, and I feel like that was a movie, like they made Scream 1 and 2 kind of back to back. Obviously it was a massive hit, and Scream 2 did well. Like it did really, really well at the box office. And then they made Scream 3 because they were like, oh, well, you know, might as well make a trilogy, and Hollywood loves trilogies. And I don't know if maybe that's why he didn't get on board with this. I mean, Wes Craven still directed it, which is why I think those scenes work. But for me, I didn't really like, I'm not sold on the third act and the reveals, I don't feel are great. And it as well as like a character that you've never really met before. And it doesn't necessarily hold like water in the same way as the first and second one do. So again, I wouldn't say it's a horrible movie, but I always thought that like Liev Schreiber, like Cotton, should have been the reveal in the third movie. Whereas because that
would have been cool.
Yeah,
which
I
is
agree.
like,
Cotton really was that would make more sense if he was a killer than Roman, and that was the thing that bothers me about Scream
Roman.
3. It's like I like what Jessica's saying is like it literally reveals like here is what is happening in Hollywood. This is like, you know, a known secret that no one can really talk about, but we're going to put this in the movie for the audience to figure it out. But it's just Roman as a character. His whole storyline, the idea that he masterminded this whole thing in the first movie just takes away everything that was important in the first and second movie, and it feels out of place for me. So
it's like, surprise, he's the emperor. It's like pulling the strings. Like it was bizarre to me, and I watched it with someone who hadn't seen the series before. So I was watching. It was one of the ideas why I got this idea for doing this, you know, this Hotstove From Hell. But basically, like the third, there are writing issues too with it, and like the ideas of and the references to her mom, in Scream 3, like they play well with Sydney's character development, but the idea that like, you know, her mom knew what she was like, quote unquote. Sorry, I should say this because some people are going to be listening to this on a podcast, quote unquote, like should have known better. And I'm paraphrasing, of course, but that's in the script, and knew what she was getting into and should have just like, and you know, she's obviously abused by all these, you know, Hollywood elites, which obviously has this weird, you know, tie into real life with Miramax and the Weinsteins. Like making this franchise to begin with, but I just feel like it's I don't think you'd see that in a movie today, and so it is a bit flimsily written in the third act. I'd agree with everyone for sure, but still a lot of fun, not taking away anything
Absolutely.
from but yeah, I mean, my runner-up is number 4.
And mine too. Yep.
So Kelly, we can discuss this. Should I just kick everyone out of the year?
Bye.
I love 4 because just like what I said earlier, like it's almost like the Wes Craven was away from that series for a while, and I think Kevin Williamson came back and wrote that one, right? So
they're Dream Team's back for 4.
Like they were away for like 10 years, and it's kind of like, you know, going and watching it with a fresh set of eyes and having these new ideas. And also one of the testaments to the entire franchise, which we'll get into a little bit later, is the fact that it can still riff on the current movies that have come out.
Absolutely.
And I felt like I like the 5th one. We'll talk about that. But like the 4th one was so like, I feel like the 4th one is more relevant than the 5th one today.
It still holds up a lot. Yeah. And another big thing too, one of the freshest endings in the series.
Yep.
Like the way that they end up at the hotel or that sort of the hospital and all that stuff. Like a lot of the endings have been repeated sort of. That one's different.
Yeah.
And I love the ending of there has to be 2 killers. They have to do this. They have to be found in a certain way by the cops.
Yeah.
I think it's a big surprise that's not really telegraphed. And my problem, why I like it more than 2 personally, and Kelly, I'll throw it over to you right after, but is I thought that the second movie telegraphed its one villain too much, and who is you know, surprise, Timothy Oliphant in that role. I just thought, I was just like, that guy. Like that guy's up to no good for sure. And that's before I saw Deadwood, you know. So,
but he makes every movie better though. So like
he does.
He's always good.
And I think it's like one of those things. Like when I saw it, and when Mrs. Loomis is in it as well, like
Laurie Metcalf.
Because I was just like because that's Jackie from Roseanne, right?
Laurie Metcalf.
Yeah,
she's great.
I feel like when I watched it, I was just like, yeah, but it's like Jackie from Roseanne. Like, come on.
You always knew she was going to snap at some point in that show.
Yeah,
they pushed her too far.
Tired of not getting the spotlight for herself, right? So, I mean, how meta would that be, right? They tied into Roseanne and like. I'm tired
Jackie Loomis.
Now Kelly, sorry, I did say I'd throw it back to you. Scream 4, let's talk. Why is it your runner up?
I really liked what you said earlier about how relevant it seems and it remains, and I think it will for quite a while, since social media and the internet is taking over our lives and did 10 years ago, and it still is now. There's a lot of darkness in this series, and Jess and I actually covered for our podcast last fall the whole series up until at least 4, and talked about the relation of this series, especially the original, to true crime and people's obsession and fascination with true crime. But there's a lot of darkness in the series, and I saw it kind of start, like, you see a lot of that in the first movie. And then you kind of start losing it. I love Scream 2 so much. It's my favorite horror sequel, like actual sequel, not like sequel in a franchise. We start losing it. Mm-hmm. And we get to 3, which I think is like this goofy, campy situation. Not that there's no darkness in there, because sexual assault in the film industry absolutely is. But just as the general tone of the movies, they just kind of get lighter and lighter, and then we get Scream 4, and we're back to like the original. The kills are more brutal, they're harsher, we're killing everyone. And I also love that I love Sydney a lot, and I love her in each movie, but I particularly love her in the 4th one, because it's almost like she's come full circle, and I'm really proud of her, and I'm really happy for her. And it's very shocking. We have kind of like our fake ending, and then our real ending over in the hospital. And Sydney also has a lot of great lines, but I feel like in 4, you don't fuck with the original is just, it's so
it's the best. It's the best. It's the best one-liner in the entire franchise.
She gets tougher and tougher, but more grounded each time. Somehow she manages to do this, and it's just a really, really wonderful movie. And again, our dream team comes back. We got Wes Craven directing, which I'm pretty sure was his last film. We have Kevin Williamson, who I love and adore, and anything he writes and does for teens. Growing up as a teenager in the 90s, he was, our guy. He did Dawson's Creek. Anyways. But we get them together and you can see it. The dialogue, the characters, we're back to being kind of believable. We're back to being just this incredibly dark and scary, harsh movie. And so
and I just wanted to follow this up because there's a great there's some great dialogue, and this is why Kevin Williamson was so missed and so welcome back is when Sydney confronts Jill, and Jill reveals herself to be the killer. Sydney says, "What about like even your friends?" And Jill says, and I gotta read this. It's gonna take a while, but it's worth hearing. She says, "My friends, what world are you living in? I don't need friends. I need fans. Don't you get it? This has never been about killing you. It's about becoming you. I mean, for fuck's sakes, I had to kill. My own mother had to die. No great loss there. So I could stay true to the original. It's sick, right? Well, sick is the new sane. You had your 15 minutes. Now I want mine." What am I supposed to do? Go to college, grad school, work? Look around. We all live in public now. We're all on the internet. And it's there's more to it than that, but I don't want to talk for half an hour. But that movie was made in 2011, and everything she says in that kind of that piece, that chunk of dialogue, totally relates to now, and maybe even
she's a serial killer influencer.
Oh my god, she absolutely is. And frankly, I think she's the most psychopathic out of everyone in this franchise. Out of all the killers, she is the most apathetic, sociopathic, psychopathic, which makes her the scariest one of all. And of course, the most unassuming, because she is a young white woman, right?
Yeah.
And she is my favorite.
I think the motive is
Lillard.
strong too. Like the motive is strong as to why she does things. And also I do feel that movie is violent. It's also got I'd agree, Kelly. Like the essence of the original, I think, is pretty expertly captured. It's also got my favorite opening next to the original. I mean, I think the original is so iconic, but the opening is just like, this is so funny. And like, but they also don't, nothing in that film really overstays its welcome. I don't think they lag on anything, one particular thing, and they don't necessarily copy the original. I mean, they reference it obviously, and they pay some homage to it and create a great sequel, which is fantastic. And I would say that's the next one to look at if you were going to skip, any of the ones in the middle. But
sorry, I was going to say, like, on your saying on the opening too. The other great thing about this is, like, at the time, you got to remember that all of the scary movies had come out at that point. So the franchise had kind of turned into a little bit of a joke at some point. And so the way that they open that, they sort of address that. It's a little bit campy and a little bit goofy, but then they immediately draw that back and turn it into like an actual horror film, which is pretty tough to do. Like coming in on because you're laughing at it and then it goes serious and then it never turns back.
Great point.
It definitely stands out for an opening.
And the open. I mean, one of the things about this franchise is because it has that iconic opening in the first film. Just the idea, because it's so expertly done, and I have no idea who came up with that. I don't know if it was Wes, or I don't know if it was Kevin or whomever, maybe just the marketing guys at Miramax, who knows. But like, just the idea of like, we're gonna massively promote Drew Barrymore to be in this movie, and we're gonna kill her in the opening scene. And to me, it's like, it's such more of a gut punch, because you're just like, what? Like, because I remember watching that movie being like, it's got Drew Barrymore and Nev Campbell.
She's even on the cover, on the poster.
Yes, absolutely.
And for a while, we posted that on our Instagram today. Like she was the only picture. Like they adjusted it when it went on to. They obviously had different artwork for the home video release, but the original poster is just her with her hand over her mouth. And it's so I think, like, I love. I mean, number 2 has a great opening sequence too, because it's so referential, and now you're like inside a movie that's inside a movie, which is probably the first time that's been done. But I mean, I felt like I just think that 4 is. And it's funny too, because when I watch that movie, it's got everything's got super high contrast in that film. Like everything looks like it's glowing for some reason, and I didn't really know why. And then you get to the thing where it says, you got to dial it up with some flashy music video direction, which is like, turn up the contrast. So
I've heard people say it's like Instagram filters. The horror queers, when they talked about the Scream franchise, they kept calling it the Instagram filter over the whole movie of Scream 4.
which is even funnier, because it was made in 2011. Like it's we'll see. I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like that's sort of like number 5. I think hasn't had enough time to breathe. I feel like, I think like I thought the 5th one was made well. Obviously Wes Craven's no longer here, we have but I did like Ready or Not. I thought Ready or Not was pretty awesome, and those guys at least appreciate the characters and whatnot. But I think it might look a bit different depending what the next 5 or 6 years holds. I think it could be really outdated, or it could be like right on the money, just like Scream 4 is. So I'm not sure. Also, one last thing. I love the sequence when the one character, when Hayden, that's the actress's name, but I can't remember.
Kirby.
Sorry, thank you. Kirby. When Kirby has to guess all the remakes that have been made, and she just rattles off like it's one of those, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
love for Kirby. Yes.
Anyway, so now that we've got all that out of the way, is there any reason why your least favorite is your least favorite, or is it just a question of like, too many children to pick from, or too many kittens? like Kelly, I think you said that.
There's never too many kittens. I didn't say that.
But we had a couple of fives listed last. And
who was listed last for Scream 2022? That was me.
Yeah, Kelly.
I put it at the end too.
Right, and Jessica Buck.
I did,
Jessica, talk to us about
Scream
5.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
What was the deciding factor here?
Deciding factor. Overall, I really enjoyed it. I've only seen it once in the theater, so I feel like I do need to go back and watch it, let it percolate a little bit more. But there were a few things that kind of irritated me as I was watching it. It felt very similar to Halloween Kills, where they don't honor the feeling of the first one. There was a couple of scenes in Scream 5 that I found were like just a little bit too like over gory. Spoiler alert, when I can't remember his name now, but the young guy, he gets like stabbed like in the throat, and you're like watching it go through his throat for like a minute straight. I'm like,
it was very mean. It was a
Scream.
very, very mean movie with very mean kills. I would agree.
Yeah, and I feel like the Scream franchise, like when you think about the stabs, they're very quick. They're almost bloodless sometimes, or like you see it about to happen, and it's always that like dagger waiting to happen, and then a quick slice, and then you see later the blood. You don't see it happening in real time, and so that kind of bothered me a little bit. Like we're focusing a little bit too much on that gore and that kind of torture kind of lens, which I didn't like. Some of the dialogue, because I think Kevin Williamson is producing it, but he didn't write it, so some of the dialogue was a little watered down. And I think the lead, I didn't love her. Like I loved Tara.
No.
I feel like Tara should have been the lead. And Sam was just kind of like, she reminded me of like the nameless blondes that would be in like a 1999 2000s horror movie where you're like, I'm gonna forget you when I leave.
She was a wet noodle.
But overall, like I left smiling. I was smiling during it. I was like almost singing to myself when they played Red Right Hand. Like, overall enjoyable, but a few things that just irritated me, and that's why it's number 5 for me.
Now, Jessica, fair points, but we do have to revert back to the rules as well. Scream 2, number 2, the death scenes are always much more elaborate, and also Scream 4, rule number 3, the kills have to be way more extreme.
True. I mean,
but fair point.
Yeah.
I just wanted to throw that out there for our audience, unless they can't keep track of all the rules. I know there's 100 of them. So, okay, who wants to go next? Throwing it over to let's throw it over to the other Jess.
Oh, well, for me, for Scream 5, what I didn't like about it is the Billy Loomis connection. I didn't believe it. I also found it very. The hallucinations bothered me. They looked fake.
They're awful.
And I'm like,
where's CGI Skeet Ulrich? It was awful.
Yes, thank you. And that's why I was like, I didn't believe it. Like, okay, so possibly Billy Loomis could have had a child, and would have been a total asshole sleeping around during his time when Sydney was grieving her mother's death. That I can believe. Yeah, that makes him an asshole. But when Sam, the character, comes in, she's not believable in her acting of being someone who's struggling with the fact that she is the daughter of a known murderer, of a known serial killer. I couldn't believe that. And then like the hallucinations, I was not a fan of that. And I suspected the killers really early on. It was like, okay, Amber and Richie, yes, like right away, like you can point them out, but based upon their behaviors and how they're acting. And I agree with Kelly. Like, yeah, the kills are gorier, but they're straight up mean. Like, I was shocked, and I know I'm spoiling this for everyone, but I was shocked with Dewey's death. Like, I was like, I literally sat there agape being like, okay, he's dying. I can accept this. This is, a natural progression for a legacy character, but it was kind of brutal, and it kind of reminded me of Sally's kill in the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, where it was just like, ouch, like he didn't deserve
overly dramatic, overly gory, and
to say like it's an honor, and you're like,
is it though? Is it an honor?
It did not make fans look very good.
Okay, let's throw it around. So Barrett, you threw this as your last pick as well. Any further comments?
Yeah, I mean, some of the same reasons too. I found the ending, and I know it gets harder and harder as you go along, but to tie it into the original, but it was just very contrived, just hard to get on board with that this all happened with that in mind, with Billy Loomis, the attachment and all that. And the writing. There were some things with the writing that I don't know. I always when something is going off and you're watching in the middle of a interesting, exciting scene, and all of a sudden you're like, but where is this and why is this happening? Like you kind of get out of the scene. It's because there should be something else written in there that to make it make sense. I thought there was like at least 3 scenes, big, like kind of epic kill scenes where like the one with Dewey in the hospital, suddenly that entire hospital floor is completely empty. And then like 2 seconds later, there's everybody everywhere. That was like one. There's another point where when the sheriff and her son were in the house, she's the sheriff and she called the police and it takes her like 10 minutes to get back to the house. The cops still aren't there. And then the kid's wandering around in the house for another. There was like a handful of things like that. And I try not to pick apart things, but it just kept happening. And it also kept happening where like somebody's doing something and they turn around and the killer's right there. Like that works once or twice, but it happened a lot in that one I found. And it's just not something that was consistent with the rest of the series. Like any of those things weren't consistent with it, but I did have a lot of fun. I like some of the new characters. I agree with the lead. I thought she did what she needed to do, but I felt like the other girl was stronger. It was great seeing all the originals come back, but then it was also kind of, I mean, it was a little sad the way that what happened to Dewey and everything. I mean, that was the goal, but I just feel like it could have been done in a better way. Overall, still fun, still a solid entry for like a 5th entry in a slasher series, but
yeah. So the only 2 things I'm going to say about that is one, I can't talk too much about the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre because spoiler alert, that's going to be the next Hotstove from Hell.
Shit! Just don't come back.
Tune in. That's how I wrote these people in. Hey, I have them on the desk.
I have much more.
So can't talk to that, but let me just say this: I felt the same way about the treatment, that movie's treatment of Sally, who is, if not the original final girl, pretty close. I think so. I think she actually might be, but I mean, there's going to be some horror historian out there that's going to be like, nope, and then email me. So, but
he's already messaging.
So I'm sorry, but I think that Sally is the original final girl. But I will. I have some points about this film. What I like about it. I did feel like the saddest death for me was when Sheriff Hicks gets killed. That to me, I was just like, wow, because they get her son and they get her, and it's like, oh man, like this is crazy. I did think, like, I thought to me that felt like everyone's on the table, and I didn't feel like, same thing with Kelly. I think you were saying about number 4, where it's like anyone can die, and I mean, again, even potentially even the main characters, and I thought Dewey's death was like. That was the thing that made me I was like, whoa, like I thought it was like, I think it was a gut punch for sure. And I hadn't felt that from the series in quite a while. Probably because it's the character and you're so close to these characters now that you obviously don't want to see anything bad happen to them. But I didn't guess the killers. And I thought the reason for that is I didn't think it was Richie, so played by Jack Quaid, who actually I'm a big fan of Jack Quaid for sure. Big fan of his father too, but like who's Dennis Quaid for anyone out there who doesn't know that. But I mean, Rich, because he's in a different city at the start, and so my only thing, and Barrett, I think I would agree is, and I can't remember who else said it, but the 2 sisters, I felt that could be one character fairly easily. And I was kind of confused at the start too when I was watching. So it was my first movie back in the theater. Like, I was just like, let's go see Scream 5. Like why not, right? But we went on a less busy night, but it was still fun seeing it with some people. But I just felt like they were sort of interchangeable characters, and I was a little confused at the start because I was like, okay, wait a second. So Billy Loomis is her like she's the illegitimate child of Billy Loomis. And who's this other kid? Like, is that her sister? Like, are they adopted? Like, I couldn't quite figure it out. Were they adopted? I can't remember. Or was she adopted?
She was her half sister. She's or like a daughter. Like their mother, they have the same mother.
Okay.
But it's different fathers, and Sam's father is Billy Loomis.
Right. Okay. So, and no, not to go down the Texas Chainsaw rabbit hole, but That movie had the same problem where I was just like, how are these people, like, how are these kids related? Like, you know, but I guess then again, you know, sometimes I look at my sister and I'm just like, yeah, we're not from the same family. Like I'm just this like tubby, like bearded guy. And like, anyway, so, but again, it's like, I just feel like I shouldn't have to think about that. Right. I should be like, I want to say, ooh, that's good casting. Like, you know, when they cast moms and daughters and or you know, fathers and sons, and you're like, that's good casting. Where'd they find that guy? It looks just like, you know, Kevin Costner or whatever.
Well, they did really well with the two characters that were like the Meekses, Mindy and Chad. Like I like those two characters a lot. I like them when they're on the screen. They made it fun. They were like the Randy, the Matthew Lillard influences again. And I like the great, like he made some great comments. He's like, I'm not gonna have sex with you now. You may be the killer. And I'm like, smart man.
But then he went and walked into like the dark woods 2 seconds later.
Dumb too. Yeah, that's true.
that was another point that kind of, I was like, wait a sec, you turned that down and now you're walking into the woods. I
thought the thing for me with the killer reveal with Amber is that the fridge scene threw me off, and I was like, oh, maybe it's her, and then she goes down to get the beer, and it's Mindy's there, right? So and I was like, ooh, I don't know, that's like, why would you, like, that's a good, I thought that was a good sort of,
that was a good
like,
scene.
Yeah, I thought it was a great scene, and also a callback, a nice, like a funny callback to the first one where he's like, I'm going to get another beer, like so.
It was a callback to the Tatum scene overall, which I enjoyed.
Yes, yeah. So I thought that was pretty good. Oh, also speaking of Tatum, the in Scream 3, when they replicate the house, they replicate the garage door in that.
Oh yeah, they did. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So the only other thing I wanted to say was, like, I did it was pretty cool when they did the reveal of the house. I thought that was pretty, I was just like, I don't know, like, you know, like I always feel like I've said this on another podcast recently where I was like, you know, people say like nostalgia is sometimes is always a bad thing, but sometimes it's really good. Like in if you can play it off like that, I just thought it was pretty solid. And I thought that the third act was decent. Like I thought there were some real stakes, and I think you don't quite maybe get there without Dewey making that sacrifice.
I love when Sydney and Gail show up, because they just both show up and they were like, we're done this bullshit. we're ending this right now. And so So just before we jump into, we're going to jump into the second hour here. Thanks everyone for sticking around and tuning in. But I want to talk about the legacy of the series, its characters, its creators. I think there's lots of rich stuff to talk about. I know we've already kind of touched on some of the characters. I also want to touch on the killer too, because I think we haven't given Ghostface enough of the spotlight tonight. So we're going to get into that as well. But just talking about the end of movie one-liners, Sydney's one-liners. I created just a quick list of the top 3 that I think. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong or add to this, please. But in the original Scream, when she says it's your turn to scream, asshole, I think that's a good line. And also when Billy Loomis comes back to life and she says, not in my movie, and shoots him in the head. It's pretty, I mean, for the first film too, when you don't really know this character too much. Big shout out to Scream 2. Even though it's low on my list, it's got one of the best ending lines, which is Sydney says, "You're forgetting one thing about Billy Loomis. I fucking killed him." Which is like,
yes.
Especially since she's kind of terrorized through that whole movie, and she's like, worried about, I mean, I don't know who would be worried about Jerry O'Connell, but whatever. I get it. Okay, I get it. No. And of course, this was already mentioned, but my personal favorite is you forgot the first rule about remakes, Jill. Don't fuck with the original, which is so good. And also, right before that, she says clear. She like takes the things and zaps her, the heart, whatever you call that thing. The doctor heart thing, and zaps her in the brain. I just felt that was a great transition into talking about these characters. And let's start with, and this is, check out this tie-in, grew up in the Royal City, which is Guelph, which is where I am broadcasting from, in Guelph, Ontario. Nev Campbell, starring as Sydney Prescott, the you know, heroine of this movie, the lead, and I'm just this conversation can go anywhere, and I'm sure it will go multiple places. But after 5 installments, like, is Sidney Prescott now shoulder to shoulder with Laurie Strode? Is that a fair assessment now, or does she still have work to do?
Oh no,
I say she was. Yeah,
I think
she was done in 2011, I would say. And hands and tears above Laurie Strode. She's actually, I'm not a massive Laurie Strode fan, I will say. Yeah,
she's the comparable though, right? She's the main comparable though, right?
Yeah, she would be. Yeah,
sure. Yes. Thinking about Sidney and legacy characters as overall, which I actually really like this legacy term that has now been discovered and realized. I thought in Scream 5, it was all very weak. You bring my queens back, and they gave them nothing to do, pretty much. Yeah. Like, as soon as I get to the Mocker's house, Gail gets shot, and then she's gone for a little bit, you know? So I feel like Sidney is done. I felt like she already was done. But I love Sidney. She has a journey, but I really do think that it was done in 2011.
So that's a question of, you know, you don't really have the original people making the film, for, you know, obvious reasons. Wes Craven's passed away. Kevin Williamson's on as a producer, but, you know, is probably either done or working on other projects, or, you know, doesn't want to return. And also because he wrote Scream 4, probably is just like, I went away and came back once, and I'm good. I ended on a good note, and I don't really want to make a movie. It's time to give it off to somebody else. And I can respect that. And I'm wondering if it's like the studio just really being like, and this comes down to movie making too, which is just like, can we invest this money and make it back and make a hit on like a 4th sequel to this film franchise without these original legacy characters? I love how they call that into question. I love how it's part of the rules. I think it's very self-aware of that respect.
Me too.
I
agree.
Yeah, but it's strange how, I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure how I feel about it, because, well, put it this way, like, with Sidney, I think that's the one thing I had more appreciation for when I watched the 3rd one again, was that character arc for her from 1 and 2 is really kind of carried over in a very natural way. Like, she's a counselor on for an abused women's hotline. She has a gun. She doesn't list herself. She has a secure, like, all these things, sort of like she's kind of triumphing this trauma that she has that's obviously created in the first 2 movies, right? Like, her boyfriend's and his friend are the murderers, and like then her boyfriend's mom, and blah blah blah. So but I thought that was a very natural, I think it closes that loop fairly well in Scream 3, but I did like in Scream 4 because I just have a lot of respect for Neve Campbell as an actress and the career that she's kind of carved out for herself. So not to kind of veer too much into that, but I just feel like she's done well. Like she's just, I don't know. I just feel like it's like just a great trajectory for the character, and one that she's respected before anyone else, maybe, right?
And in part 4, going from part 3 to part 4, you kind of see that she's sort of reclaimed her freedom and her strength again after hiding and being afraid, and she went and took care of it again. And then you see her in 4, and she's a little more like, whatever you got to throw at me, I've dealt with it. I'm going to deal with it again, which is cool to see that kind of come full circle.
Well, it's really nice because, like, Sidney is that final girl that a lot of trauma survivors can look to, and being like, her journey is really representative of what a lot of trauma survivors go through, the PTSD, the going into the isolation, trying to reclaim their lives again, and going back into the world. So that's why it's so wonderful to, like, and that's what I like about, like, while 3 may be my least favorite, I enjoy it for the fact that is part of Sidney's journey. That's just another chapter of how she moves through dealing with all her whole history of trauma from her mother and her family and everything, and the inherited trauma. So I feel like in 5, when she does come back, like I agree with Kelly, like in the end, like Sydney's story ended in 4. She was like, moving on with her life. So it was nice seeing her in 5 be like, she's got a kid. She's, she started out her life and you feel annoyed for her. She's like, fuck, I have to deal with this again. Like,
well, she didn't really have to. Like, she didn't have to.
It's very true.
You know what I mean? Like, I she felt that urgency.
Yeah, but she felt an obligation to Dewey in the end. So she shows, she shows up. But the way she shows up, I like is because she's like, I'm here and I'm fucking done with this. Like, literally, I don't want to deal with this anymore. I'm done. Like, wipe my hands of it. And that's why I'm like, I think Sydney's journey is over and we don't need to see her come back for a 6th one, in my mind.
Yeah, it kind of feels like the way that her and Gail both, they kind of felt like the slasher moms in 5. It's like they weren't really doing anything. They were kind of overseeing the kids. They're like, hey, you guys are dealing with it now. Like, you're living our lives. We're just going to watch you do and pass on the torch. So I feel like maybe in 6, maybe neither of them will come back. I mean, like she always came back for Dewey, but now that there's no Dewey, is there a reason for her to come back?
Yeah.
I have a feeling like maybe Tara will take things on. I hope, because I loved her character, but
I agree.
I don't know.
Just a couple of quick things about Sydney in the 5th movie. Just doing my research, obviously, for this episode of Hotstove From Hell. That's right, you're listening to Hotstove From Hell from Black Fawn Distro's Takeover Tuesday special super deluxe episode. And joining me on the panel, of course, are Jess and Kelly, the Spinsters of Horror, Ry Barrett, and of course Jessica Buck from Rue Morgue. So thanks everyone for sticking around and for tuning in. And now I'm going to see how I did that. I did a little shout out, and then I'm going to do a little bit of information here for anyone who might not know. But the rumor is, so I read an article the other day that when Dewey calls Sydney in number 5, and he said, it's happening again, Sid. Do you have a gun? And she said, I'm Sydney Prescott. Of course I have a gun. So that line was ad-libbed. That was ad-libbed by Neve Campbell, which is awesome.
Yes.
Because she thought it made more sense for her character at that moment in her life, which is great. And also as well, there's the mention of her husband, Mark, who is referenced potentially to Mark Kincaid, from Scream 3, who was Detective Mark Kincaid.
Yeah, for sure.
Or as I like to call
Dempsey.
Or as I like to call him,
what was he
McDreamy.
McDreamy. Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, is there any like when I heard that, I was like, that makes so much sense, because I just watched the 3rd one, and remember when he's got like, he's like the perfect dude. He's like, he's got the big bowl of popcorn, and he's just like, hey, watch the movie, you coming? Like, and it's just like, of course she married that guy, right?
Yeah.
Also, Mark Kincaid is like the quintessential cop name from like the 90s.
Absolutely.
And how many times at the end of the 3rd one does he come to the rescue and then immediately get knocked out?
Yes.
So he's not there to protect her.
Because he doesn't need to be protected.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting. And also the other thing that I was asked was whatever happens to Sydney's father. And there is apparently a deleted scene. I couldn't find it, but there's a deleted scene in number 4 where it mentions that her father's passed away. And that's why he's not in the rest of the series. I always thought that he'd be I always thought he was going to be like a killer.
Comes
but
back.
Yeah, comes back.
I waited 20 years.
I feel like that would have been a great. I thought I thought he was going to be the killer in number 3 originally.
The person they suspected in the 1st one was really the killer the whole time. The whole mastermind was Sydney's father. Terrible.
God, we had him and he just slipped through our fingers. Okay. So one thing, I mean, again, we were just talking about legacy characters and whatever. And I think one of the things that really helps this franchise along, it's really given us 5 pretty decent installments. Of course, some are better than others, but is just the fact that I always feel like the cast, both young cast in the legacy cast, let's say, meaning, Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, David Arquette, they always come to these movies. Like they always feel like they want to be there. Like I never get the sense that they're like, oh God, like David Arquette's just here to cash in, just to collect a paycheck. Like nobody seems like they're taking the series for granted. I feel like all the cameos are really well placed too. I feel like people are like, yeah, I'm going to do like a great job because it's this film series, and not necessarily like, whatever. We'll just I'm just going to show up and do whatever. And I wonder if that's kind of added to its longevity. Care to comment?
Yeah, I think it's because I guess the creators of these characters kind of respect the audience in the way that like they're going to create real characters, people that we care about and that we want to see time after time. I mean, if you look back at the horror movies that came out in the early 2000s, it was a bunch of forgettable white blondes. And it's just like, just slash them. Nobody cares about any of these people. You're going to forget about them later. But this is like, I would be devastated if we lost Sydney or any of these characters. Like, yeah, we're all sad that Dewey got killed off. And I feel like there's just something about the creation of the characters that you're like, I want to see them succeed. I want to see them go through it. And also we identify ourselves within some of these characters. Like all of us are kind of like the media geeks and like the film class student type of people. So like watching these movies, you see yourself in it. So you're like, obviously I care about these people. This is a reflection of me.
Yeah.
100%.
I would say,
and like,
go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, go. No, go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say, Benner, I really like what you say, because again, really refreshing and wonderful thing about the Scream franchise is that we get our same characters over and over again. We fall in love with them in the first one, and we continue to fall in love with them and care so much about them and what happens to them. But I feel the opposite. I feel like they were very tired in the fifth one. Like they didn't have much to do. Their dialogue was weak. Their presence was weak. I think the overall movie was very underwhelming and weak, but I wanted them to be better. I wanted more for them. I get that they're like predominantly the story is about our new characters, and that's fine, but give me more of my legacy characters. You're going to bring them back. I need my Gale Weathers to be Gale Weathers, who is the unsung hero of the franchise.
You need your Gale Weathers to be Gale Weathery.
Yes, exactly. But I do love when Sydney says, "Oh, I put a tracker on her car. That's what Gale Weathers would do." And I was like, "It is. So why isn't Gale doing this?" But like, I liked that little dynamic. That was fine. But I feel like they were tired. Their acting was tired. These actors are tired. Probably, David Arquette was like, "Okay, now I'm dead. Thank God." It's also, I just feel
I'm sure David Arquette didn't say that, but yeah.
It's just like, I felt all that was, they were tired. They felt tired. They looked tired. And I just wanted a little bit more for them, because holy crap, we've spent 20 plus years with them. They deserve more than that. And I think generally overall, when it comes to these legacy characters, we just have yet to see a movie that treats them well. I have yet to see a movie that treats our legacy characters with any kind of dignity and respect. And Scream 5 is now another one of them that I think treats them with absolute disregard for their historical importance in horror, but then in these franchises, Texas Chainsaw, Halloween, Scream, and they just they're not well made. That is my opinion, absolutely. But we see it again now, and I'm tired. I'm kind of tired of this. They all deserve way better than what we are doing for them.
Oh my goodness! I feel like you've just opened up a can of worms.
Yeah.
I would.
Bye.
Kicked out. I would. I kind of agree, Kelly. Like, I mean, I feel like it can be done tactfully and tastefully. I heard something the other day where it's like, bringing back legacy characters, but not really giving them anything to do. Like, so you've brought them back, and what are they doing? Are they facilitating the growth of other characters? Perhaps. I thought like the first remake, not Halloween Kills, but the first Halloween, I shouldn't say the first Halloween remake. You know what I mean? The most recent first Halloween
2018.
There's a lot of this one.
Halloween 2, but not Halloween 2. It's just called Halloween. That one with Laurie Strode being like Jamie Lee Curtis in like 40 years, and the trauma kind of how it's affected her mom and how it's affected her granddaughter differently, I thought was expertly done. I love that movie. I thought it was awesome. And then Halloween Kills, they just I don't know what they did. They just blew all that up for no reason. Like, I haven't
seen Halloween Kills yet, but
I also haven't seen
it. They say Halloween Kills spoilers.
They stole the Terminator Linda Hamilton's role for the first one, so I mean, you couldn't expect much new or better.
Yeah, so no spoilers for that, but I've got some very very let's say harsher sentiments towards New Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but we won't get into that. Why? Because it's going to be the next episode of Hotstove From Hell right here on Black Fawn Distro's Takeover Tuesday, probably next month. That's what we're gunning for, and we got some great guests lined up for that. But I just wanted to throw up a couple of comments from our viewers tonight. Just a quick. I said someone was going to ask this or say this, but Black Christmas might be the first Final Girl, but not sure on the exact release date.
No. Texas Chainsaw came out in 1974, so you need to be looking at 1974 and earlier, and it's
would it be
Rosemary from Rosemary's Baby? I mean, we can Final Girls.
You can look at Hitchcock stuff, but
I was gonna say
totally. Like there's because we're putting the Final Girl in the box of slashers, which I know she generally was born there, or at least grew up in the slashers, but she has evolved beyond that, which is a whole different discussion. But I would disagree, commenter, but that's just me.
Okay, so Black Christmas, the original Black Christmas, of course, the original Black. 1974 was the original Black Christmas.
Ooh, so there it is, the Texas Chainsaw. Which month? I'm kidding.
So Texas Chainsaw
but Jess
Massacre
and
1.
Sally, I would say, are some OGs and some slashery films. Yeah.
But I mean, going back to Scream, was there a Final Girl in Peeping Tom? Because I'm pretty sure there was.
The original, right?
Is that the original? Yeah. Is that from Scream 4? Yeah,
the original said, Scream right? Scream 1, the answer to the phone call is Peeping Tom.
Oh, right.
So there was probably a Final Girl in that as well. So that's probably the answer. Because I think Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven had a new.
They just made something up. They're like, we'll just put anything in there.
Look at a Hitchcock film, and you've got a Final Girl.
Yeah.
So we'll have to check the release dates. And also just a quick comment here from Mel saying, "Oh gosh, Kelly, I love your shirt. Niagara Falls Comic-Con just announced a Scream celebrity. I was so hoping for Matthew Lillard, but it's Roger L. Jackson, who, for those of you who don't know, is the voice
of Ghostface
in all 5 Scream films of Ghostface, which I'm still okay with. Yes, I'm pretty stoked that Roger Jackson's making an appearance down there. It's pretty awesome. And that's my next segue, because I said we'd do this. We got to give some love to Ghostface, because he's a character in his own right, even though it's the villain is played by obviously different people. But the thing I noticed when I watched all these movies, so I watched 1 through 4, and then I went to the theater and watched number 5 like a couple days later. So the one thing that I love about Ghostface is that he's totally different, or he or she is totally different than all the other slashers or slasher killers that came before him, right? So they are like, they're bumbling, right? Like they're always moving so fast, and like Ghostface is always knocking shit over, and it makes it believable that you could fight them and smash them, knock them over, because they're different people, obviously, like in each film. But I love how just I don't know. It's like a whirlwind. He's like he just comes in and he just like whirlwinds around. But this is the thing that I did love about Scream 5, is that I thought they made him super menacing. There's the shot in the opening, and the hospital stuff with Dewey. I thought that stuff with Dewey was like, I can see why people wouldn't like it, for sure. I understand that. But I just thought it was just like fairly gut wrenching, and they made like Ghostface like this ominous fucking killer again. And I didn't think that was really in like the third one or the second one. Even in the fourth one, like the fourth one I thought was true, but I didn't think they had really captured that since the first one, where it's like, God, I'd be terrified of that if this person was in my house, right? And
that sequence in part 4, though, when it's kind of a throwback to Nightmare on Elm Street, when the neighbor is talking to them on the phone, and then she gets attacked when you're expecting somebody else. It's pretty vicious. That would be one comparable to, I'd say.
Yes,
that one is actually believable, whereas the one in the new Scream isn't so much when you look back in hindsight, because it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I felt
I
kind of felt like going back to the fifth one and the two sisters. I feel like that, and I'm just speculating. I have no idea. This is just me talking. Okay, just some guy with a podcast. But I just feel kind of like they needed to do the switcheroo, so it wasn't Jack Quaid, so it wasn't Richie. So they had to make the other killer, because at the start I was like, man, like Ghostface is like tearing this girl apart. Like he is like just beating the shit out of her. And so I don't know, just for me, my brain went to like, well, it must be like a bigger person than his victim, right? Or her victim. But I wonder if that's why they cast the smaller actress to play that sister role. Cause I feel like if it was Sam, I feel like Sam, like she's bigger in structure. I feel like she would hold her own, and she's sort of like though it wouldn't maybe make sense in that scenario. And the idea that they needed to do that to lure everyone back to Woodsboro, right? So, but I don't know.
And they're both injured too, right? Like her and Dewey are both pretty injured going into this scraps, but still, I know you kind of look back at that scene and you're like, would it go that way? And also, doesn't Dewey know better than to walk back there when the killer's been shot a few times? And that whole took it away from me.
Dewey, you're gonna get stabbed in every Scream movie. That is guaranteed gonna happen. So don't walk back.
I mean, he had a history of being stabbed, right? I don't know why we're surprised.
Got enough limps, just don't go back.
He'll be back in 6. We'll find out it was all scar tissue.
Just missed a nerve.
I know I was mentioning this just kind of before we got on the air, but I did also love in Scream 5 the references to calling movies like without sequel names anymore, because they have to appeal to like they have to appeal to a new generation of audience, which I hate, right? It's like just call it like Scream something, not, you know what I mean, like just some other tag, like, so it's not like every franchise is doing that now for some reason, because Halloween made $1 billion. So but I just don't know, so
they're calling it requels now, right?
I think I've never heard that before, but that was in Scream 5. So now I'm like, maybe that's trend setting, right? Maybe that's why this movie will survive in a different light, like down the road. I'm not sure, but
well, they brought up the debate between elevated horror and regular horror. Sorry, quotation marks. I like the debate they brought up in the horror community within the movie. I was just like, okay, I see what you're doing here.
There was a lot of like very relevant, recognizable things that they threw into it, which is what the Scream franchise does. Scream goes where the horror genre goes, right? So I understand, even though it made me fucking cringe a whole bunch when she was talking about elevated horror. And if you know me at all,
I was thinking
you say elevated horror, I'm like getting ready to fight. I hate it so much.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
But
So
it's relevant. It's so relevant.
Scream has always kind of been like the commentary on the zeitgeist of what the current horror flow is, right? It's kind of the commentary on the time. So it is cool looking back and seeing which ones stand the test of time and other ones are like, oh, that was only this kind of 2-3 year period and then evolved again. But
I'm wondering, did that, but isn't it like, how did you feel about that? And Kelly, because I know your feelings about elevated horror. We've talked about it. And if you want to hear Kelly's feelings on elevated horror, you can check out our previous episode with the Spinsters of Horror on Black Fawn Distro's Takeover Tuesday, which is available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as YouTube and anywhere else you get your podcast from. But
I've also written about it a few times because it just grinds my gears.
Did you isn't that a bit of a conflict saying like the kills are so brutal and nasty when like they're talking about elevated horror, and originally I feel like it's like trying to be an elevated horror, like Scream might have been like one of the first quote unquote elevated horror movies that were like self-aware and made fun of the genre it was operating in, and then that movie just turns into a straight then Ghostface just goes around just kills motherfuckers, right? Like it's like, isn't that the twist on that? I feel like that's kind of I think that was the kernel of where this movie kind of came from. That's just my opinion, but like I just feel like they were like, what if we trick people into thinking this is going to be this whatever, and it just turns into straight slasher.
Maybe that's what they were thinking, but I didn't get that from when I was watching it, because Tara is young, right? So she kind of grew up with a lot of these movies over the last 20 years. So I get why it was thrown in there, because it is a debate within the horror community, but I feel like it definitely goes along with a lot of younger fans. They kind of gravitate a lot to that. But what they did, what I thought was interesting in the movie, is she talks a lot about it and even does the great definition of what elevated horror is, in quotations, for the love of God. Because, and then she's like, stab, I wouldn't watch that. Poo-pooing on a genre that's been around for 100 years and has always had elements of social commentary in it. But she's what, 16 years old, 17 years old? Maybe she doesn't really realize that yet, right? Stab is based off of Scream, and she was like, oh, Scream. Oh, sorry, not Scream. Oh, Stab. That was so 90s, you know? So I feel like she's just a product of her time in what's happening right now. And so I thought that I liked how they played on that. It just was cringeworthy for me because I just hate that debate, but I think they handled it quite well.
Yeah. And I feel like having the movie nerd, excuse me, in any movie, like you need to kind of cast that quite well. And I thought they did. I thought they did a pretty good job with that in Scream 4 as well, which is
Kirby.
Kirby, as well as not the Culkin brother that's in Home Alone, and not the Culkin brother that's in that's on
Rory Culkin.
Rory Culkin. Thank you. Yeah, he's not on Succession. Not the guy that's on Succession.
Not the Kieran, not the Macaulay.
Yeah. But I just thought like his like that character is really he's played really well by him. It's written really well, because it was kind of the start of like quote unquote toxic fandom that, you know, I think they had their finger. I think, you know, the writer, Kevin Williamson, had his finger on that 10 years ago, and they didn't really, yeah, exactly. So they didn't really expand as much as on that, I think, as they should have in Scream 5. But still, getting back to my original point, I was trying to make, was that we were talking about just before we came on the air about Ghostface, and how Ghostface in some of the promo stuff had the metal Ghostface mask, which I loved. I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. I was like, is that how they're going to bring him back? At least like they're kind of augmenting the mask and it'll look like maybe a bit scarier. Like that's cool. Like, I mean, metal, anything is cool, right? So I was like, oh, that's cool. But then the way they do that, they introduce that character when he's got the flamethrower, and then
oh my God, Kelly, and the cut off sleeves. I want to watch that Stab movie. Somebody make that, and that's our like.
That would be Stab in Space. There's our
that was Stab in Space.
Stab in Space.
Yeah, was that
Stab X?
Because
Stab X.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to so Ghostface. So where would you rank Ghostface? Where would everyone rank Ghostface as far as like in the annals of horror history? Is he he's up near the top, or is he kind of lower near the bottom?
I would say definitely top. Ghostface is iconic. I like that. Really, the costume pretty much never changes. Definitely not the actual mask itself. At one point, it gets a little glittery. But otherwise it's the same. And what is so wonderful, one of the many things that's so wonderful about Ghostface as our killer, is that it literally can be anyone. And that's what's scary about one of the many things that's scary about the Scream franchise, is that, and predominantly it's going towards our female characters, is that it could be anyone. And that's kind of like the shape in Halloween, who he didn't even have a name at first. He could be anyone. He could be your neighbor. He could be your boyfriend. He could be your teacher. Like, he could be anyone. And that's, I think, the wonderful thing, and one of the scariest thing about the Scream franchise is that you don't know who to trust in your life. And that's very relevant to our real lives. And like, Ghostface, I keep saying he, but Ghostface could be anyone. Your enemies, your foes, who you're going to encounter in your day-to-day life. Who normally hurts you the most? It's people that you already know. And so that is what will, I think, definitely one of the things that will stand the test of time for Scream, is that Ghostface quite literally could be anyone.
And also he usually stabs people in the back too, right? Like that's like, I think, like, more often than not,
he's very unique. Like, if you, because I always have a thing where I sort of, because I love old Universal horror films and stuff, and I always kind of compare modern stuff to what the older ones were. And like, you get your Jason Voorhees, your The Shape. They're kind of like a Frankenstein zombie sort of thing. Freddy Krueger's kind of like Dracula. Ghostface is maybe closest to the Invisible Man, I guess, because he's literally, you don't know who he is.
He's chaotic.
He could be anybody. He's right behind you. All you know is
and
his
is
voice.
A human.
Yeah, and it's very unique that way, because he's not, he's not a werewolf. He's not a creature from the Black Lagoon, but he is that one thing, and there's only that one version of that thing. So he really stands out that way. I think there's a lot of others that really mimicked. I love Friday the 13th and Halloween, but there's a lot of other films that just completely copied that. With Scream, there's not a lot of other copies of Ghostface. There's just, because he's unique. He, she, they, unique.
So I can't. Sorry, go ahead, Jessica.
I think it's really hard for a serial killer or a slasher type character to be scary and also talk. Because I think that's why, like, Michael Myers is scary, why Jason is scary. They're this silent creature stalking you. I remember even watching one of the Nightmare on Elm Streets when I was a kid. And then as soon as he starts talking too much, and you're just like, oh, shut up. You've just ruined it all because you're making these stupid sayings. And so it kind of ruins that. But I find Ghostface, he's scary to look at, but he's also scary, like his voice and the way he talks on the phone. Like, even when I saw the preview of this new movie coming out, it starts off with the phone ringing, and I was like, I know that's happening already, and I'm already scared. Like, there's something about it. It's like they nailed it. Like, he can talk and he's scary. He can be silent and he's scary. Like, or they. It just works on both halves, which I find is really, really hard to do, especially in a lot of horror movies. It's like just to get the dialogue down and be scary.
And I think that plays off like your introduction to that character, right? Like what was your introduction to the villain? And especially for Ghostface, it's like it's in the trailer, like the original trailer we played at the top of the show was like that scene is so good because he's like, what are you watching? And like, what are you making? And then he's just like some guy on the phone. And then and she's like, why do you want to know my name? He's like, because I want to know who I'm looking at. And it's like, it changes where it's like, and I feel that comes back all the time. But yeah, I can't, the only thing I wanted to happen in Scream 5, I wanted them to show who that Ghostface with the no sleeves and the flamethrower. Like, I wanted that to be the fucking Rock so bad. Like,
it was probably Timothy Elephant. He's sneaking.
Well, those arms, yes.
So, but listen, talking about anybody being in movies and anybody can be Ghostface. I just wanted to run down a few of the cameos, at least, that have appeared throughout the series that some of our audience may or may not have forgotten about. But obviously, Liev Schreiber who played Cotton in the first 3 movies. I know he's only in the first one for like 2 seconds, but Liev Schreiber, Henry Winkler, the Fawns, speaking of teachers, Principal Fawns, who is also awesome in the original. He's such a he's great. He reminded me of the guy in like Footloose, right? Just like, damn kids dancing everywhere. Obviously, Jada Pinkett Smith and Omar Epps, and Heather Graham. Obviously, this is when it got fun, starting in Scream 2, where they were like, let's recast these people like we were making a movie. Of course, Tori Spelling and Luke Wilson, who is my personal favorite. Oh my god!
Yes.
Like, how did they get that guy? Like, I just wonder how many dudes are in horror. Like, there's a funny story about like Daniel Craig is a stormtrooper in Force Awakens just because he was working on another set and he popped over and was just like, can I just be in this? Like, and they were like, sure, come on in. Like, Sarah Michelle Gellar, not sure if it's a cameo, but she's definitely a peripheral character in the second one, which is awesome. Buffy,
one of the most memorable roles in that movie, actually.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes.
100%. Of course, we already mentioned Laurie Metcalf as Mrs. Loomis. Joshua Jackson, Pacey.
Thank you.
In a quick cameo in the I think that's another thing where they were just like, yo, like, just come to set and like hang out my craft, and then we'll just get you into this, university class scene. Rebecca Gayheart and Portia de Rossi were the sorority sisters. Obviously, Anna Paquin and Kristen Bell, which were in Scream 4, and of course, like the other meta opening for that movie, which was Lucy Hale and Sheena Grimes. And of course, I must be forgetting somebody. I know there's a ton of them, but I just love the fact that they always incorporate people. And it's almost every time I see a person or an actor or an actress in one of those roles, I think it's always an homage to Drew Barrymore. That's how I take it anyway.
Scream 3 has a bunch of like director and producer and writer cameos too, that they're just literally walking by or they're there for like 2 seconds.
Roger Corman's in that. Yeah.
Carrie Fisher.
Oh, wow.
When they're just like, what do you think?
Carrie Fisher.
Yeah, Carrie Fisher's like the librarian.
Scream 3, yes.
Yeah. And they're like, you look like Carrie Fisher. And she's like, no.
I get that all the time.
What does she say in that role too? She's just like, oh, well, like, you know, the role went to whoever fucked George Lucas or whatever.
Yeah.
Carrie Fisher. Oh my God. Like, God, the world's a worse place because she's not here. Like, I always forget, like, I think a lot of people forget how funny she actually was. Right.
She's great.
But I was trying to think of other cameos in it, and I didn't have enough time to make a list, but I did some of it. But I feel like it's, Jada Pinkett Smith too. I mean, it's funny because a lot of the actors and actresses in those kind of opening scene roles went on to have fairly storied careers, right? It's interesting how that everyone starts in horror, right?
Pretty much. Yep.
Awesome. Yep. Okay, so we're coming to the close of this awesome Hotstove from Hell, brought to you by our sponsors, of course, Wellington Brewery's Hellas Lager, Deadly Grounds Coffee, and Twisted Teas, and of course us, Black Fawn Distro, as part of our Takeover Tuesday podcast series. You can catch this, the rerun on this on YouTube, of course, as well as on all the major streaming platforms, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you feel like going the extra mile, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Help spread the word about us and the show, as well as our incredible guests, which at this time are Kelly and Jess, the Spinsters of Horror, Jessica Buck from Rue Morgue, and Ry Barrett, Canadian acting legend. So speaking of where things are going, we're going to go to the end of this program, but the last topic we had to cover was, so Scream 5, definitely people are divided on it. We'll see. Maybe we look back in 10 years with a different point of view on this film, maybe not, but they have announced Scream 6. So Scream 5 is a box office success. They're moving ahead with Scream 6. So you can't say no, they shouldn't make it. They are going to make it. Okay.
It anyways.
It's happening.
Say it's done. No more.
It's happening. Where do you think the series should go? And I'm going to throw it out to the panel here. Who wants to go first? Or where do you see it going? And let's put it this way: where do you see it going, and where would you like it to go instead?
I feel like if they're going to follow kind of horror series tropes, like we see in 5 that Sydney's pushing a baby cart, I feel like if we're going to go how a lot of series have gone, they're going to come back for Sydney's kid at some point. So maybe not in 6, because I feel like they'd have to jump ahead in time unless she has another child that's a bit older. But I feel like at some point, Sydney's daughter or son, I don't think we know what it was, will be a teenager, and it'll all start happening again because of who their mom is.
Okay. And just to let everyone know, Scream 5 Cream or whatever, Scream 2022, or what was the other one? Someone had something anyway. Did $81.5 million US domestically, which was North America. Internationally did just over 58 million. So it did 139, just shy of $140 million worldwide at the box office. And it did $30 million opening. So no surprise. It actually performed better than Scream 4, I believe. So we're getting Scream 6, and we're probably going to get Scream 7. So who wants to go next? Where do you want the franchise to go now that it's going somewhere? And again, I guess. And where do you think it's going to go? And where would you like to see it go?
I'll go after Jessica there. I think I'm going to throw it out there that it's going to be Sam is going to really struggle with her, at the end, because she makes that kill there where she's like, never mess with a serial killer's daughter, which was too long of a line.
Yeah.
I want to see her struggling with her identity and what she has to go through. And I want to see like Tara come and be the final girl and maybe have to like battle her sister or something like that. I don't know. I'm not a huge, I don't know what's going to happen, because I think 5 was great. Not great. Sorry. It's not great. I just think it's a good ending. Like let's let's wrap up Ghostface. He's tied intimately with Sydney and go from there.
And sorry, I forgot to mention this too. I tried to find this, but there is a line. Sydney has a line in number 5 at the end where I can't remember what it. Maybe it's Gail. It says this, but when they light the girl on fire and she says,
no, Sydney says it.
What does she say?
She says, enjoy the torch.
Yeah.
Because they've already said, Tara, no, sorry, not Tara. Amber says, you got to pass the torch, like forcing it upon them to pass the torch. And then she goes up in flames and Sydney says, enjoy that torch. And I was like, cheeky. That was good. I liked that. That's pretty good.
But I agree. I agree with Jess. Like it like what? Yeah, what is, I don't remember. Never trust the what is it, Jess? That never trust the daughter of a serial killer.
Yeah, it was essentially never trust the daughter of a serial killer. I'm like, that is way too many words for a good one.
It's way too long for a quip.
It's also a bit. Yeah, quip? It's also a bit. It's also a bit lame. Like like I don't know. I know
now,
those are hard
now
to
she's
write.
like taking some kind of power into herself that her dad was a serial killer, and I'm like, there's a lot going on.
No. Your dad's a terrible person.
No.
Don't redeem Billy Loomis at the end of this movie.
Do not.
I feel like they did. I feel like they kind of did paint like Billy Loomis as like he's like a shitty dude, but like just like maybe just a bit misunderstood. And it's like no. He was like the most evil guy. Like he was
that
like
hallucination.
So
grab the knife.
Yeah. Now I get there's hallucinations. So you think of your father as, someone that you see your parents in a different light than maybe other people do. So I understand that, but I didn't think it was, you need a better one-liner. I just recently rewatched True Lies. Jamie Lee Curtis tie in. And just the ending when the guy, like the terrorist guy, falls and he lands on like the rocket on this plane, and then it zooms in on Arnold's face and he goes, "You fired," and he just shoots and it's just like I know that Arnold is the king, like he's the king, he's the fucking master at one-liners, which is surprising, but like just like I don't know, just the look in his, like he almost like winks during that thing. So anyway, I agree. I think that it needs to be, you need to punch it up. You need to run that by people so people go, and you need good people working around you that go, nah, dude, that sucks. That's no good. That's no good.
Totally. So I'll go next.
Sure.
And of course, I kind of wish Scream 2022 doesn't exist, and I don't want any more to exist, but alas, I'm not in charge of these things. The powers that be are. So it's happening. So what I'll say is I understand that this movie is going to bring new young fans into this franchise that we have loved, maybe just more recently, have loved for 20 years. It's been in our lives. We hold it very sacred and close to our horror-loving hearts. But I understand that this is going to introduce so many younger fans of horror movies that love elevated horror, but maybe haven't seen Stab, but now they're going to watch Scream, and I don't want our legacy characters in the next one. Let's keep going with these hot, fresh, young actors, which I knew none of them, side note, but that's common for me. I had no idea who any of these people were. Right? I was like, I don't know.
I knew Jack Quaid because of his dad. Anyway,
I didn't even know that it was his name.
The boys.
Sure. Okay. So I knew no one. So I feel like continue with our young cast, because there were a bunch that survived, which is great. Maybe those are going to be our new, legacy. You need like 20 plus years to become that. But I have our core. We have Tara. We have her sister Sam. We have the brother and sister team who were awesome. So we have 4 people that survive besides Gail and Sydney, but let's take that 4 and keep it going with them and remove our legacy characters. They came back, they did their thing, in quotations, they didn't do anything. So just take them out of it and just keep going with these characters, because we know horror is going to change. Whenever the next one, I don't know what they're going to have to say about horror, because like we said, Scream always goes where horror goes. So I don't know where they're going to go that is going to be so different than what they had to say this time around. I'm not really sure. I'm curious to see, but let's keep going with our young, fresh actors. Ghostface can be anyone. It could be anyone. We can keep it going. I would be way more on board if Kevin Williamson came back, because then it'll probably actually be a good movie. But I would. That's where I would.
He was on as producer. He was on as producer.
Executive producer, whatever.
Okay, so okay. All right, sorry. Is he producer? Hold on, let's check. Let's fact check.
Executive, whatever, producer, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
he just took the paycheck, I think, on this one.
Signed off and been like, yeah, that's cool. You do Radio Silence, who I didn't even know before this either. So it's, it's fine. Keep it going.
You're right. Sorry, he was not a producer. He was credited as characters created by.
Took the paycheck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's probably why he's an EP on it, right? It's because it was his original idea. So
right. So those are my thoughts. Final thoughts, projections.
Okay. Has anyone who hasn't gone here yet?
Okay, so this is a bit of a joke, but I would love to watch it at the same time too. It's getting on in the franchise. We're in franchise slasher history. That's kind of where things start to get a little crazy. So I don't know. I'd like to see some supernatural elements. Like maybe they bring back one of the killers from the dead and they end up on a cruise ship in a lake that somehow ends up in Manhattan. And I don't know how it all ties together, but like maybe there's a flamethrower shooting fucking Ghostface in it at the end. I just feel like it's starting to get a little tired. So if they're going to do something, they really got to like change it up at this point, change the setting. I don't know, something. But I mean, I'd watch that movie.
Oh, holy shit. I thought you were going to say in space there for a second.
Yeah. That's already been mentioned too. So.
Yeah.
Blue Origin.
Ghostface goes to hell. There we go. We need Ghostface goes to hell.
I am sorry, I just lost track there. Has everyone answered that question?
I don't think Jessica has.
Oh, sorry.
I did. I went first.
You did. Okay, great.
Okay.
Benner hasn't given us his predictions.
Okay,
yes, final thoughts.
Okay, I didn't want to skip ahead. That's because it's the worst. So I think that it's definitely going to be interesting. I like the idea that I love the idea that like Mark Kincaid might be kicking around still. I think that's kind of that's pretty awesome, because I mean, what's that guy done lately? And I don't know if he comes back. I'm not sure. I also kind of like, I was scared when I went to see Scream 5 a little bit, because I was like, there were some rumors going around on the internet that they were like, oh, they're probably going to make Sidney the killer. And that's going to be the big reveal that nobody's going to see coming. And I was like, I hope they don't do that, because I feel like it's a bit lazy. And I feel like it's just such a cop out.
Jumping the shark.
Yeah. Like, and just
jumping the shark.
That would not make any sense.
Like, and you can telegraph how they would write that. They would say, well, I've been through all this trauma, and so therefore it's affected me, and the bullied turns into the bully and all this stuff. So I'm glad they actually didn't go there. I was kind of surprised that they didn't, because especially with the Billy Loomis stuff at the start of the film. So all that aside, I do feel like they have a kind of a strong cast. I'm with Kelly. I didn't know any of these people. So I knew Jack Quaid because of his dad. And, but I mean, ultimately, but I was still, to me, that was actually kind of cool, especially Mindy. Cause I was like,
yes, please.
Yeah. I feel like I just, like, this is the thing too, right? It's like, I just want strong characters that I might not know, that I can come to like and maybe love, but also that are competent and that aren't just, I just don't want them to be set up for slaughter. Mm-hmm. Like a little bit of that, of course, it's a horror movie, it's a slasher, right? But I also want them to be like human. Like I want them to feel like, oh, like I would have known that person in high school or university or whatever. And the idea for movies, especially horror movies, and what makes, I think, these movies so much fun is that, what would you do in that situation? Would you be able to get away? Would you be able to do whatever? So I'm interested to see what they do with that. I think that's the strength of Sidney as well. Through like, and Neve Campbell, I think Neve Campbell's awesome in this series. I think she's, like I said before, I think she's treated the series with respect. She shows up every time to work and like really puts her heart into it. At least that's my feeling. And also I think like I think she's aged gracefully. I think she still comes across as like tough and like relatable.
Tough,
tough, relatable, but also like still fearful, still vulnerable, right? And that's a really hard thing to kind of put together into a character, especially when you only have maybe, let's say, like 90, 100 minutes of screen time. I think she that carries across all 5 films, which is awesome. So as far as I know, I think she is back. So I think I'm kind of with Jessica. Like, I feel like the family is going to have to come into it, because why wouldn't they terrorize her again? But again, like, I don't know, like, I feel like they got away with one with Dewey, and I feel like you can't have the cast back and just continue to knock them off, because I don't think it's going to have the same emotional heft. And also, you need these characters to be victorious, like fully, like at some point. I think that's the ending of Scream 3, is that closure. Scream 4 is so good, and that's why we have Scream 5, and now we're going to get Scream 6. But I just like them to take into consideration things like about the characters. I think that's the next step, and not just the films themselves. So talking about legacy characters and why it sucks to bring them back, and why it's irrelevant. And you know, I think that's going to be the thing that will make it interesting to watch. But again, it all depends on the writers. I think it's the same writing team, so the same guys who did Ready or Not. So I mean, I didn't hate Scream 5 as much as Kelly, so or as anyone else on the panel apparently. So I don't know. That's my take. I just feel like they need to, as far as Barrett, as Ry, you said, like kind of doing something like a supernatural thing. I don't know, man. I feel like
I'm pretty much joking on that, because it doesn't really mesh with the whole thing. I'm just saying, like, they got to do something different to make it, to keep it fresh.
Yeah.
Because now it's at, like, I feel like 5 was just like, I've seen this before, I'm having fun with it, but like, there needs to be something else now.
Yeah.
Maybe Matthew Lillard will come back. He was kind of teasing it before 5, saying, like, he's like, Stu's not dead. You didn't see him die. And apparently he is in the background of 2 and 4.
That's a rule. That's an unspoken rule.
Maybe he'll make it fresh.
I would be fine with that.
Yeah.
Just okay, just a couple of comments before we go. Just a comments from some of our audience members that are tuning in. So just got a comment here saying Tara's commentary on the phone is very reminiscent of Sydney's commentary in the first film.
That is correct. Yeah.
That's a cool thing. Yes. And also just a follow up. Good guy Billy with a thumbs up and a wink, giving his daughter advice. Hilarious.
Good guy.
I will say they did a Scream reunion at Fan Expo in Toronto a few years ago, and so they had Nev Campbell, Skeet Ulrich, and I can't remember who was the third person.
Roger Jackson was there.
Was it Roger Jackson?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I remember I went up to Nev Campbell and I said, I said, hey, as I was like, big fan, Guelph represent. And I gave her a fist bump and she laughed. And then I remember, and she looked great. And, just, professional and ready, whatever. Skeet Ulrich, looked like he just got off work. Like, he just he just threw a hat on and was just like, which I thought was pretty funny. So even when I saw him in this movie, I know, did they digitally de-age him? Is that kind of what they did?
They tried to. They did that in quotations.
Using quotations.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Yeah. Very filtered.
Poor Skeet.
He's handsome right now, but I know. I just. Oh God. Anyways.
It's fair.
Yes.
And just a quick let's see, and a quick last comment from Mel Berry. I've been waiting for this, and after I am watching the new Scream, woot. So I guess hopefully you didn't hear too many spoilers, Mel.
Sorry.
Well, we did warn you. So, but again, I will just close by this. The funniest thing that I thought about when I was watching all these movies was like, I can't wait for Halloween. I'm totally going to go as Ghostface, and I'm just gonna go into parties and just knock a bunch of shit over, and nobody will know who it is, and just fall into stuff and whatever, and then people will just be like, man, sick Ghostface, right?
Nice.
Anyway, well, listen, let's wrap it up. We're over the 2-hour mark. Thanks everyone for sticking around, and of course, thank you to our sponsors, Wellington Brewery's Hellas Lager, Deadly Grounds Coffee, and of course Twisted Teas. And a big thanks to our panel, of course, Ry Barrett from the Canadian film industry, a legend. If you've seen a Canadian movie, he's in it probably. Jessica Buck, contributor to Rue Morgue Magazine. Thanks for risking it all and joining our panel tonight. I know it's your first time in the program. Will you be back, or
if you'll have me?
Yes. Okay. Perfect.
Amazing. All right.
And of course, big shout out to the Spinsters of Horror, Jess and Kelly, for coming back to the program as well. Always lovely to have you here, and I appreciate your candidness and your honesty and unbridled passion for horror films. That's super awesome, and we couldn't thank you enough for joining us. Just in closing, just going around the table, anything else anybody would like to add, either about the Scream franchise or anything you're working on right now, or how people can check you out? Floor is yours. Go right ahead.
I just want to say, oh boy.
I just want to say cheers, folks. Cheers to, it was a lot of fun just talking to all you guys, horror fans, and with Scream. That's all I want to say.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'll jump in. Ryan, are you wearing the Stephen King Rules shirt?
Yeah.
Yes. I also have that. It's the only red shirt I own. Love the Monster Squad. So thank you so much for wearing that.
I didn't have anything Scream topically, so
that is almost even better. So yeah, Jess and I are the Spinsters of Horror. Our podcast, I Spin in Your Podcast, is available on all podcasting apps, wherever you can see podcasts or listen to podcasts. We're there. Our website is spinstersofhorror.com. We're on all of social media, so just type in Spinsters of Horror. You will find us. And please, we do have a relatively recent episode on the Scream franchise, generally 2 to 4, but we do definitely touch on 1. And yes, so please check that out. And this was a blast. Thank you so much for having us back. We will come back anytime. I think I speak for Jess when we say that, that we will definitely come back for more if you'll have the Spinsters of Horror.
For our listeners, Jess gave us a thumbs up.
I gave a thumbs up. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, thank you so much for having us here.
And last, of course, certainly but not least, Jessica Buck, what do you got going on? How can people check out your stuff?
Well, you can read Rue Morgue Magazine. That's mainly where I am. Mostly smaller reviews, but I've had a couple of bigger cover articles. One just came out in the December one, if you're going back, on Newfoundland horror, and I had one on horror. Deafness and ASL in horror previously. I'm not really sure what my next one's going to be, but I'm brewing maybe something about Scream. I have a lot of things to say. Nice. But yeah, just keep checking out Rue Morgue. I'm always in there in some portion.
Awesome. Well, again, thanks everyone for tuning in, and thanks for audience for sticking around. Of course, we're going to put this up on all of the major streaming platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And of course, a big thanks to you guys, my guests. Couldn't have done it without you, and we'd love to have you back on another episode of Hotstove From Hell, which is a part of the Black Fawn Distribution, Black Fawn Distro Takeover Tuesday series, which you can catch every other Tuesday. And we usually broadcast live to Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. Of course, for these episodes, we're actually we're going to mix it up a little bit and broadcast at different platforms. But of course, the reruns are available on wherever you get your favorite podcasts. So again, of course, remember to like, follow, share, and subscribe whenever you can. We'd appreciate it, and it helps spread the word about the program, as well as our incredible guests and all the cool projects that they're working on as well. So other than that, I've got nothing to add. Guys, stick around just after we go off the air. Just want to touch base, and we'll have a few laughs. And of course, everybody else, have a great night. We hope that you stay scared and scream a little, and put on a Scream movie, put on a horror movie. Keep yourself entertained. And hey, a big shout out to Matthew Lillard, because why not, right?
Yes.
All right, guys. Until next time, take care. And that does it for another episode of Black Fawn Distro's Takeover Tuesday. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, please remember to like, follow, share, and subscribe, and help us spread the word about the program and our incredible guests. If you're interested in grabbing some more information about Black Fawn Distribution, or want to check out our film titles and merchandise, you can find us online at blackfawndistribution.com. We'd also like to thank our sponsors. Wellington Brewery's Helles Lager, Deadly Grounds Coffee, Twisted Teas, and of course, Black Fawn Distribution. Just a reminder, you can always catch Black Fawn Distro's Takeover Tuesday live on Facebook, YouTube, and our other social media platforms. Or pick up one of our retransmissions on any of the major streaming platforms. Until next time, I'm your host Benner from Black Fawn Distro, and we'll see you soon.